If there's one simple trick guaranteed to help you quit your 9 to 5, would you try it? Because quitting only seems impossible because you haven't addressed the hidden barriers that's stopping you, and I've been there myself a few years ago. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's actually holding you back, how easily and safely you could break free, and the practical steps that you could take today towards financial freedom. So what exactly keeps 90% of 95 employees stuck in a job that they don't truly love? A conversation I had with a colleague revealed a surprising truth behind this. So a few years ago, I was having lunch with a friend from work, and we were talking about what we would do if money wasn't an issue. And his eyes immediately lit up as he described his ideal life, moving to a tropical island, running a cozy tiki bar, and then surfing whenever he pleased. And I was amazed at how vividly he could picture his dream. And he knew exactly where he would live, what he would do, how he would spend his days. And naturally, I asked him, so what's stopping you from doing this right now? And his answer shocked me. He said he would love to, but admitted that he was golden handcuffed. So in other words, he's gotten used to a certain lifestyle, like a nice apartment, a luxury car, a fancy vacation, that he couldn't imagine scaling back and lowering his standard of living, even for his dream life. And that's when it hit me that paycheck itself could become a trap, especially if you're earning a good salary and have grown accustomed to a certain standard of living. So here's the first step you should take. Get a piece of paper and a pen and clearly identify what's truly important to you. Ask yourself honestly, what expenses genuinely bring me happiness? Because maybe it's experiences with loved ones, investing in your health, or pursuing a passion. So make sure you keep those at hand, but then ruthlessly cut out or reduce everything else that doesn't really align to your core values. And the more clear you define what matters, the easier it becomes to let go of what doesn't. But practically, how do you start relying less on your paycheck? Now imagine your monthly income as water filling up a cup. This first cup represents all the money you earn each month. Now your monthly expenses are another cup, and this is the water that you pour out of your income cup to cover things like rent, groceries, bills, entertainment. And ideally, you want this expense cup to be smaller than the income cup, which will leave you with some water left over each month. This leftover water is what you pour into your savings and investment, which is your third cup. But here's the problem. What if your expenses cup is bigger than your income cup? In other words, your monthly expenses are greater than your monthly income. Now, you have a gap to fill in that case, and the only way to fill it is by dipping into your savings cup. But if you don't have any savings, that's when things get dangerous. You have to start borrowing money, which is considered a short-term debt. So in the next month, not only do you have your regular expenses, but now you also have to pay back that debt. And if you don't, that debt will grow month after month, just making it harder and harder to escape. But here's the good news. This negative scenario only happens when you're consistently spending more than you earn. And if you intentionally keep your expenses lower than your monthly income, you'll always have extra water left over. And then over time, this extra water fills your savings and investment cup, creating a safety net for unexpected expenses and completely eliminating the need to go into debt in the first place. But practically speaking, how do you ensure that your expenses stay below your income every single month? So let's break this down clearly using cash as an example. So let's imagine your monthly paycheck is $5,000 after taxes. One of the simplest, most effective budgeting methods to ensure that you're living below your means is called the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% is for your needs, where you allocate half of your monthly income to essential expenses, though things that you absolutely need like rent, transportations, utilities. And in our example, that would be $2,500 every month dedicated to your essential living expenses. So next, 30% of your income goes to non-essentials. And these are just extras that make life more enjoyable, like dining out, entertainment, hobbies. And in our example, that will be $1,500 per month. And finally, the remaining 20% goes to savings and investments and debt repayment. This includes your emergency fund, retirement accounts like your 401k, and paying down debt such as your student loans. And for this example, this will leave $1,000 each month and build up your financial security. Now, if you live in a particularly expensive city, you might need to adjust these percentages slightly. So for example, you might shift your budget to something like 60-20-20. So 60% for essential needs, 20% for your wants, 20% for your savings and debt repayment. However, if you find yourself tempted to dip into your savings category, there's one critical rule that you should keep. That's to never allocate less than 10% of your income to your savings. And that should be your absolute minimum to ensure that you're consistently building financial freedom. Now, once you've mastered living below your means, you'll start seeing your savings and investments grow consistently each month. But now you're probably wondering, how do you exactly start replacing your paycheck entirely so that I no longer need a job? Let's return back to our water in the cup example. So right now you need a certain amount of income each month to cover your bills and expenses. And to get this income, you start heading over to the sink and turning on the faucet. And this represents your 9-to-5 job where you're actively trading your time and effort for money. And this type of income is called active income. And active income just means that you must consistently put an effort to earn money. And if you just stop showing up to work, that faucet turns off and the income stops flowing. But there's another type of income called passive income, and you probably heard about this term. And passive income is just money that you earn without actively trading your time for it. So imagine you take some of the money that you saved last month and invest into something like an index fund. Now, instead of you actively working for your money starts working for you. And think of it like placing another cup outside in the yard to collect rainwater. At first, this passive cup might collect just a little bit of water, definitely nowhere near as much as your active faucet income. But over time, you continue to invest so you could place more and more of these cups outside. And eventually you'll have multiple cups collecting waters passively without you actively filling them up yourself. Okay, I think I'm running out of cups now. The amazing thing about passive income is that it continues to flow even when you're not actively working. So it frees you from trading your limited hours for money. And here's the best part. If you set out enough of these passive income cups, eventually they collect enough of the water to replace your active income entirely. And at that point, you've achieved what's called the financial independence, where you no longer need your job. But how do you know exactly when you have enough of these passive income to fully replace your paycheck? The easiest way is something I call the 300x rule. And here's how it works. At first, figure out how much you spend each month. Let's say, for example, your monthly expenses is around $3,000. Next, multiply that monthly expenses by 300. And this gives you approximately the total amount that you need to achieve financial independence. So in this case, your monthly expenses is $3,000. $3,000 times 300 is $900,000. So that means if you have $900,000 invested, your passive income from your investments could now fully cover your monthly expenses. So notice you don't actually need $1 million to fully become financially independent in this case. And let's do another quick example. So say your monthly income is a little bit higher at around $4,000. So $4,000 times 300, it comes out to around $1.2 million, where if you have that amount invested, then your passive income will comfortably replace your active paycheck. Now, don't panic. You don't need to save this entire amount overnight. And the goal isn't to sprint to this number immediately. Instead, it's about gradually building your investments over time, slowly replacing your active income with this passive one. But even though you now clearly know how much money you need, there's still one big question that's left. Where exactly should you invest your money? To answer that question, watch this video next where I'll show you exactly how I invest my money using one simple app and how I grew my investments to over $100,000.